Cool, guys. Yeah, welcome to today's steering committee April update. It's 28th of April, and we have the steering committee with us today. And just to let everybody know who they are basically some of the leaders from across the Stacks ecosystem. Marvin, Jude, and Gina. I don't know if you want to give a quick word, Marvin and Gina.
Sure. Yeah, hey guys. You might have seen me when I was with the Stacks Foundation working on integrations. If you've done Clarity, I worked on the Clarity book, and now I'm part of the steering committee, trying to help the SIP process along and enable people make awesome things. That's the short of it. Also, writer now, building a hardware device revolving around identity, but it's not directly related to what we're doing today. I think that's plenty.
Great, and I'm Gina, Chief of Staff at Trust Machines. I've been working in the Stacks community for what's going on 6 years, and I also do Stacker chats occasionally with Manib, updates for the community, and yeah, on the steering committee. Jude, I don't think is here, right? He has been out, although he has been online a bit as well.
Yeah, we're very thankful for you guys' time, and just to give a very brief overview, the steering committee is the steward of the SIP process, and they almost act like a final sort of go-ahead for any SIPs, and they will be monitoring all the SIPs along the way as well. So they're really important to the process to make sure that we go in the right direction as a blockchain from a technical improvement or governance improvement perspective. So yeah, let's get into the weeds. So April SIP development highlights. Lots of exciting stuff have happened in April. So would steering committee members, Marvin, Gina, be able to talk about the big stuff like the SIP 22, the emergency fix? Yeah, I'd love to hear from you guys.
Sure, I guess I'll start. Yeah, so people might have noticed that bit of an issue with POX was discovered. A bug was triggered completely by accident, but highlighted something that could potentially be very serious for the entire Stacks network. So everyone kicked into gear, and poor Jude had to come back from his leave, I guess, to also work on that. So it was all hands on deck working on this, and that turned into both SIP 22 and a few different implementation approaches, of which now one candidate has basically been selected. And the short story is SIP 22 is an emergency fix to deal with the aforementioned bug. So the aforementioned bug happens in one particular function in the POX contract called Stacks Increase. That's a feature that was added with the last upgrade, and that allows you to basically increase the stacking amount. So one unsuspecting person triggered this function to just increase the stacking amount, but that also inadvertently triggered that bug. And yeah, it's a bit tricky, but what that means is that it could actually have some very serious consequences for Stacks. So SIP 22 proposes a way to fix that in form of 2 hard forks. So you heard that right, it's 2 hard forks. The reason for that is simply that this bug could be triggered again during the next cycle or before the next cycle starts, and that could be pretty disastrous. So there's just not enough time to really think about a fix and also have the community vote on that. So that's why there's a two-step approach there. So the first hard fork is going to basically disable the POX2 contract, which means that the cycle will revert to proof of burn for that cycle. And then that will give us another 2 weeks to figure out exactly like how to fix the issue. So the next hard fork will launch a new version of the POX contract and will restore all the functionality. I think that's the full summary of it.
Yeah, I think just two things I could add in terms of context is in terms of the solution that was proposed and sort of put forth via a SIP, essentially removing proof of transfer and reverting to proof of burn. That is essentially the sort of default behavior for the network. And so no functionality is added. This is just sort of going to almost, you could consider it like a previous version of the network. And is essentially this sort of built-in safe mode. And the other thing I would add is just in terms of, then not this upcoming hard fork, but the next one in terms of essentially turning proof of transfer back on, that's really going to be done actually by network participants, right? So it's going to be up to folks who actually want to participate in stacking. Proof of transfer is essentially activated by stackers when more than 5% of liquid supply locks in stacking. So just in terms of additional context, but there's a lot of information out there. I think the community has been incredibly great about just sharing developments, providing SIB materials, providing updates on the forum. So I definitely encourage people to look at that. And also, thank you to all the, I would say the cabs that have moved really quickly to provide reviews and edits to the SIPs and have been part of this process as well.
Cool. Thank you guys. And maybe just from, I know it's almost like a sped up SIP process, but if we just think of it as any other SIPs, I just want to, I don't know if anybody here was more involved in the SIP development itself, how it got evolved. Just want to share, is there anybody can speak to the experience that they went through, and maybe that can be useful for other SIP authors here, because I know there's a Vivian and Vlad who are going to be proposing new ideas. Maybe is there any experience or tips that you can share with them, with the greater community, the process, how you evolve from the original idea to the final solution or proposal?
Are you talking about this SIP specifically, Eurogamer, or just generally?
Yeah, this SIP specifically. Any experiences that can be shared? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that this is probably not the best one to use as a model moving forward, given it was sort of like an emergency SIP. But in general, I do think that honestly, working with you, Hero Gamer, and working with the rest of the community to sort of share more about the SIP, share background, provide context, and then essentially following the process as outlined in the sort of SIP guidelines and presenting the idea, adding as a draft on GitHub, essentially going through the review process with the CAB groups. I think those are all the main essential steps, and it generally, we would want to give it a little bit more lead time because there's a lot of different stakeholders involved. But I would say that, this community is pretty sort of communicative and very open and receptive. So I would say that if there are any specific questions, we're happy to answer them. And in general, I feel like Hero, you're a great resource when it comes to the process as a whole.
Cool, thanks. Yeah, why don't we talk? I'll give time to Vivian and Vlad a little bit later during the open floor space. What about, let's move on to a Bitcoin MEV solution. I know that's also something happening in April and will come in May as well. Could you guys talk a little bit about that?
Marvin, do you want to speak to this one, or?
Well, I'll just say, I think like last time when we kind of discussed the issue, there were some solutions. I was just looking through the list of figures here because like he seems to be involved in everything. But me personally, I don't know if there have been new developments since then. That's quite possible. I've been caught up in step 22 and looking at the implementations. So I could quickly speak to what the issue of Bitcoin MEV is, but as far as like latest developments on a solution, I'm not sure. Maybe someone else can speak that who's more directly involved in that.
I think that there's actually going to be a deep dive on this topic next week, actually. Is that right, Hero Gamer?
Yeah, next Friday, the co-developer will come and present their latest finding. Yeah, there's been lots of work going on behind the background with external entity as well. So that's as far as I know. I don't actually know the solution yet. I'm also waiting to hear the latest proposal next Friday. So Pavitra is coming on to talk about that next Friday.
Sweet. Well, yeah, Marvin, do you want to maybe preview the discussion so folks can know if they want to attend that call or not?
I think this should be super interesting, but I can just speak to people who are hearing this for the first time. So MEV is minor extractable value, and it refers to the fact that miners have a degree of control, right? Even though networks are decentralized, miners can still choose which transactions to mine in which order, and that may actually impact certain things on the chain, right? So you see that in other blockchains as well in terms of front running certain DeFi trades and whatnot. It can get pretty complex. But what's happening here specifically for us is that there is a Bitcoin mining pool that is also mining stacks. So that's great news, of course. But what they have done is figured out a strategy where they try to bid on becoming the next stacks miner or next stacks leader. And as you might know, that process happens by submitting these commit transactions on the Bitcoin chain. But since also Bitcoin miner, what they do is they actively ignore all the other commitments from different stacks miners. So that means that in any block they mine, they are the only one bidding, and that allows them to bid the minimum amount necessary. So basically, they can mine stacks blocks while not spending any Bitcoin whatsoever, really just the lowest possible amount. So that translates into the fact that the POX rewards go down. So you might see if you get unlucky, if you're mining as a solo stacker, or sorry, if you're stacking as a solo stacker, you might notice that suddenly you're supposed to get a certain amount of Bitcoin reward, but you only get a few Satoshis. That's one of the effects of this MEV situation. So you could say it's a form of censorship. They're just ignoring other Bitcoin commits on the Bitcoin network. So yeah, naturally that's undesirable. So people are trying to figure out a good solution to that, and there's a few things that are work in progress. Fricker has done a lot of work on that. So I think, yeah, that's a quick summary. Maybe we can also answer some questions about that at the end, or we could keep it until next week.
Yeah, maybe let's keep the question till later. The best. And maybe let's move on to talk about the latest in the SBTC world. I know you're more heavily involved in. Yeah, why don't we update about that?
Sure, yeah, I can highlight some updates on my end there. So I have to preface by saying I'm mostly involved in the Clarity side of things. So that's where I know most of the stuff going on. The working groups are pretty big. There's lots of different ones. So I'll speak mostly to the Clarity side. Yeah, you might have seen the SIP itself as a work in progress to describe the SBTC protocol, the trustless two-way peg to Bitcoin. That involves threshold signatures and a so-called peg wallet that is managed by all the stackers. and there are certain like systems in place to make sure that the stackers are honest and faithful to the protocol. So in terms of some latest developments that I can see I've been involved in is currently there is a sort of a intermediate version being developed called SBTC Mini. That is a simplified version of the protocol that already uses the stacking network, but it's kind of like an opt-in. So as a stacker, you can decide to join the protocol and then you become one of the signers. So that means that you're responsible or partly responsible for maintaining the peg. And the Clarity side will process the corresponding Bitcoin transactions that happen to mint as BTC tokens and to lock them up and to burn them when you peg out. So that's been pretty exciting. And I think the latest development is they started to define what the actual structure of these Bitcoin transactions looks like. So what is exciting is they figured out a way in which SBTC can be used even from custodial wallets. So you can peg in from your central exchange if that's what you want to do. And you can also peg out in the same way. So that's pretty nice. And the structures for those Bitcoin transactions is what is currently being defined. So I don't think that made its way into the SIP yet, these new developments, but should be at some point.
Cool. Could you just explain a little bit what are the different work streams and why they exist and how they work together? Are they just like different part of the SBTC that need to be tackled, and we just break it components and tackle one by?
Yeah, that's basically it. And I hope that maybe someone from Trust Machines are heroes on this call, so that is involved. So maybe they can talk about all the work streams because there's quite a bunch. So I cannot list all of them myself, but what you say is basically correct. So it's a very large project that involves many different aspects of the Stacks chain, smart contracts, the Bitcoin side, right? So you need a lot of different kinds of expertise, and that's where all these work streams come in. So there's one work stream that is dealing with the Stacks node. There's another work stream that is dealing with the threshold signing mechanism. And then there's another work stream that might be the same one as the threshold signing, but one that does the key generation. So that's an algorithm called Frost, where all these signers kind of coordinate and they create a threshold wallet. And generate an address, and that's going to be the peg wallet address where the Bitcoin goes. So there's a work stream working on that. Then there's the Clarity work stream, as I mentioned, that's the one that I'm involved in. And then there's also work streams that are dealing with the front end. So what is this whole platform going to look like, and make this useful. Then there's also indexers that are watching the chains for these SBTC events, and I'm sure I left out a few, but you get an idea just how involved this whole project is.
Oh, that's a lot of work, guys. I know there's so many of you co-developers involved. Thank you guys so much. Yeah, so let's just move on quickly to other SIP efforts. So just want to let everybody know SIP Editors Committee is really taking it to the next level. Like we've had 5 Twitter spaces so far. We've actually reviewed a couple of things, a few different SIPs, and we put it into a document that you can see the full impact assessment of any given SIP around the ecosystem. And we are trying to collectively work together to refine the process and making suggestions to the current process as well. Let me see if anybody's on here. Yeah, so that's the sort of update from SIP editor side. And there is SBTC weekly newsletter by Andre, and lots of different YouTubes and podcasts and events that explain what SBTC's project is. So I would encourage everybody to go and chime in on those stuff or listening to those stuff and sign up to the newsletter. That's the best way to keep updated about the next biggest and greatest Stacks network upgrade, SBTC. So yeah, I just want to open the floor up to to people who may be here the first time, want to ask any questions, want to understand what SIPS is all about, or I see Vlad and Vivian, if you want to unmute your mic and introduce yourself, you can do that.
Hey, sure. Yeah, I'll just give a quick intro for our project we're working on, how it relates to Stack's ecosystem, and kind of maybe questions that we had in regards to the SIP process. So we're Asigna. We're creating a multi-sig wallet for the Stack's ecosystem, and also integrating BTC. So it'd be a separate like core Bitcoin multi-sig wallet as well. We've been chatting. We chatted with Gina also. Hero's been helping us out with the SIP process, and Vlad is also on the call. He is CTO for the project. So the question that we had is, we have found two technical approaches to doing a multi-sig on Stacks. So the multi-sig would include, kind of payroll management for DAOs, treasury management, as well as stacking would also be, natively integrated. So we had two technical approaches. One would be to pretty much use the existing native multi-sig transactions on Stacks, and the second approach would be to make like a customized smart contract wallet. And yeah, the forum post is posted now through Vlad. So I think we wanted to kind of go from the approach of which approach we should take before we move forward with the SIP in terms of what would be less of a security concern for the existing Clarity and Stacks ecosystem, and secondly what would make more sense for Stacks going forward. So I think I'll let Vlad explain briefly the two approaches, and then we'd like some direction on what the opinions would be, and who we should kind of go towards in terms of determining which direction we move with, because we've already implemented both ways in terms of it being ready and live. And yeah, so Vlad, I'm just gonna let you kind of take over from there and explain that.
Yeah, thanks, Viv. So yeah, basically we implemented both approaches and we stuck on both of them with like a few complications. So I will just briefly show like both of them. So with the native approach, basically it's pretty easy to make whatever we want. So basically our wallet, our multi-sig wallet, will be like a general purpose multi-sig wallet. So basically it will call all like any possible decentralized applications within Stacks. So for that, on native approach, we don't need anything. We can just implement it, but we have one like critical issue, which is about like signature orders. So which makes it like really unusable, and which really like stop us from implementing this logic. So you can check the post which I dropped to the chat. And the second approach is to use just Clarity smart contracts. So this approach also has a few like really important like complications. So the first one is mostly about like Clarity restrictions for external smart contract calls. So basically you always need to have a predefined trade to call like any contract you want. You can't just do it like in Solidity. You can just pack it to a bytecode and just unpack it in the contract and just call whatever you want. You need to have a predefined trade because of the static analyzer. So if we want to make a smart contract wallet, and basically if we want to make different smart contract wallets within Stacks, if we encourage that, we need to accept a standard which will allow like application developers to just implement this trade, which will be used by any smart contract wallet within Stacks. So it will be like pretty straightforward to implement it. So also a few more complications are on the way about like mostly message signatures. So it's not like the first priority as the first like few things that I discussed, but it's anyway worth mentioning. So you can check all the details like this link that I sent. So yeah, we're open to any discussions, and we'll probably start implementing and releasing the Bitcoin wallet, because both other approaches are like really not really like user friendly, not really usable for now, while we're waiting for any like feedback on our proposals or issues or like any thoughts, yeah, to move forward. Thanks.
Thank you guys for introducing yourself, and I'm really glad to see more people coming in to build on Stacks. Is any people with the knowledge want to share the initial thoughts or initial sort of feedback? Marvin or Rob?
Yeah, I don't quote me on this, but I remember reading that Stacks 2.1 fixed the signing order issue so that you could sign transactions in any order. I'm just wondering if maybe that was never updated in stacks.js or the library that you're using. But while you were talking, I was trying to find evidence of that change, and I couldn't. So definitely, like Jude would know this just like that. But yeah, I do remember reading it. Maybe Price or someone else knows about this.
It's not something that I remember being included, so it may have gotten dropped from 2.1, but I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, it's definitely not in the SIP, but maybe it still made it in the PR. I definitely remembered seeing Jude work on that and seeing a PR or a commit on it, but yeah, maybe it got dropped.
You can actually check my issue. So someone replied to me in the like GitHub repo, and seems like it's I don't know, no available information for now. But if you can drop anything, we would be glad to check it out. But I tried it, and yeah, didn't work, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm wondering if that limitation is just in the Stacks JavaScript library, or if that limitation actually still exists in the node as well.
Oh, yeah, that would be good to know. So yeah, basically the first approach is like much more appealing for implementing, because the second one would require to for other like developers of all like possible decentralized applications which would like to be integrated with the wallet, we'll need to implement those traits for like executor traits. So yeah, the first approach is much simpler. If we can fix this issue, that would be amazing.
I don't know if it will help you, but I assume you're going to have custom software running to manage if you go for approach 2. And one thing that's pretty underutilized at the moment is you can actually deploy an ad hoc contract that on its contract deploy does a contract call immediately. So you can just have a contract call on the top level. You just got to make sure that it works. But it might be an approach to get around of some issues with traits.
Yeah.
But you know, it could mean that you end up deploying a lot of small contracts that do a call. I'm just saying it's possible to do that.
Oh, could you send any like information, links, or whatever?
Sure, you can try it. Like instead of defining a public function and then calling into that function, you can just on the top level have logic that calls into a different contract, and that will be executed when the contract is deployed.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, sounds good. We'll check it out. Thanks.
Oh, nice. So I'm glad you guys connected. Yeah, I'm Marvin. Yeah, so I'm very glad. What's the best way for people to follow your SIP proposal and help you with your development?
Yeah, so basically the best way is to drop any information to the GitHub issue, which I dropped. So
Right.
yeah, if it gets fixed, we will just have much more freedom.
Right, so the stacks.js issue, right? Yeah, I'll just put it,
Yeah,
okay, so comment on that post is the best way to sort of help you guys. I'll put that in on Twitter, and let everybody know where to go. And how do people like connect with you? Just via GitHub or Twitter or Discord?
I can drop my Discord. Just 1 second.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't been active on social yet because we've been kind of building both ways. On the initial
Yeah.
call we had, we presented a demo of everything working, but I think after kind of what Bryce and Marvin explained, you know, if we could fix the issue on that, we'll probably have a more clear direction, and it will be an easier
Yeah.
approach. And then from there, you know, I guess we're just going to post to our Twitter. So this is our Twitter. We haven't really used it yet, but it links to all of our socials.
Right, and just to make you aware, if you have any just general question, developer question, you can go to the developer section of the Stacks Discord server called Dev General. That's probably a good way to pose any sort of daily question that you may have, like small questions, and people can, if people know and see it, that they'll answer and help you. Right.
Thank you so much. Thank
cool.
you.
Anybody got anything else they want to raise? Want to ask questions about the SIP22, the emergency fix, or want to bring up anything about that, or Bitcoin NAV things, which we'll be talking next week. Maybe that's better. Yeah, Binaya, I see your hand.
Thank you, Hero. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. Just a couple things about the emergency ship and the hard fork. I know we have SIP process, and we go through the process of proposing and implementing through various processes. And I know, so because of the MEV situation, this is emergency SIP. So I would like to understand a little bit more about, you know, what are the thresholds and under what circumstances these emergency processes gets activated, and you know, how does this happen? And also that's first. And the next one, now I'm now recently researching with support from one of the grants, one of the critical boundaries for integrating stacks and nosters, and researching how these can come together. And as I'm starting to research this, I also want to focus on making these integrations and you know, transactions private. Maybe we can research integrating zero knowledge proofs and features to bring to stacks. So as I'm starting on that line of thinking, I'd like to understand from somebody that has you know, understanding of the core protocol and how these things should be thought about going forward to expand into that. So thank you.
I just added a quick.
That's open to anybody. Yeah.
Hi,
Yeah,
Vinay.
Kaylee, I see your hand up. Why don't you go ahead?
Sorry, just to answer the question, I did put a couple links in the chat for you to reference. There are specific guidelines there, Benaya, in terms of what sort of triggers an emergency in those thresholds.
Okay, thank you. I'll check those.
All right, thanks.
And if anybody else wants to comment about how to think about, you know, zero knowledge proofs and stacks and noster, you know, P2P messaging, like how we can think about like having these all together to like take advantage of all. So
I don't have a lot to add. I don't really know Noster, but I do know that Igor has been doing a lot of studying in zero knowledge proofs. So maybe it would be worth connecting with him to talk about that more. I don't know if that's specifically related to stacks or if he's doing that in general, but I do know that he's spending a whole bunch of time on zero knowledge stuff.
Yeah. Thank you for mentioning that. Actually, since last week, Igor and I have connected and started a discussion along those lines as well.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, thank you.
Just on your privacy part, I have sorry, on the topic of the privacy. I have noted a few guys because I've been like watching out like who have those private, who are interested in privacy. That I've noted a few guys down, and maybe I can share their names with you, and you guys can chime together and see what's up. Because I always had a thought about maybe there could be a group who really interested in privacy. Could be a privacy cab or privacy just sort of discussion place, a working group in some shape or form, with like-minded people about this topic. I know JW on this call is also very interested in privacy as well. So maybe I can connect, well, at least offer you the names and you can see how you want to take it from there.
Yeah, I think that something like that would be awesome. Hero, thank you.
Hey, this is Kaylee. I wanted to ask about the emergency SIP 22. I missed the beginning half. I just hopped from a meeting. I just wanted to catch those notes or any summaries on like what's going on there.
The SIP has been accepted and ratified, has been merged into the main branch at this point. The best thing to do is just look through the PR that approved the SIP. You can see all the notes from the various cabs and the comments that people submitted before it was approved.
Gotcha. Does that
looks
in
like-
that case? Sorry.
Yeah, Gina put the SIP into the chat as well, so you can just kind of backtrack and find the PR, but I think it's 127 is the PR number.
Gotcha. So does that mean for cycle 58, will users still be able to delegate into that cycle? Or will that still be like a burns cycle, and 59 will be the one where everyone redelegates into?
I'd have to read the SIP specifically to give you correct answers. I don't want to say it is 58 and then realize it's 59. So the best thing you can do is just read through the SIP. The specific cycles and what's happening is in that SIP.
Gotcha. Sounds great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, Kaylee, the links are in the chat. Yeah, the SIP has the block height, exact block height, and yeah, so that could help. Anybody else got anything they want to talk about?
I can answer that question real quick. So it will be, cycle 58 will be a proof of burn cycle, and then cycle 59, if everything goes smoothly, will be building on proof of transfer 3.
So when the new cycle, begins and users can delegate, so do all the stacks that was stacked become unstacked and then they have to restack, or how does that transition happen for somebody that has committed stacking, that is panned?
Yes, so there's a block height. I think it's 787. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Well, there's a block height. I think it's about 200 blocks before the beginning of cycle 58 that all stacks will be unlocked. So anything that's locked currently will be unlocked for cycle 58. And then once POX3 is published and the 2.3 epoch starts, then you'll be able to stack in the POX3 contract for the following cycle.
Okay, so since through these forks, stacks can be locked and unlocked. What else is possible? Like, can stacks be moved out of the wallet, or just
Yeah, they're completely unlocked, just the same as if they had never been stacked at all.
okay? Oh no, I was asking not by the token holder or like whoever is stacked, like through the protocol, can these assets move across wallets through, or that's not
Yes,
possible?
you can still move stacks via a regular transaction
Okay.
like you would today.
Okay. Oh, and also, or I was thinking about one question during when Marvin was talking about, or I think it was Vlad, about the structure of the transactions, Bitcoin transactions, for like SBTC mini. So can these transactions be, as they're being constructed, be designed or structured such that when they're posted, that structure can be leveraged to make transactions private in some kind of way, or how would that, because using zero knowledge proof, it we need to be able to read the snapshot of the blockchain and transactions at all time. And
I think I see where you're going with this.
Yeah.
I don't think natively what
Okay.
you're talking about is possible.
Okay.
However, if SBTC can interact with something like Taro on Bitcoin,
Yeah.
it may get to where you want to get to.
Taro. Okay.
Yeah, it was a protocol that launched, I think about a year ago on Bitcoin.
Yeah.
It's, it's a little more privacy friendly than just a regular Bitcoin transaction. I don't know if SBTC is compatible with it or if it's being taken into consideration in the development process.
Okay.
But that's the
Yeah.
only way to achieve what you want to do, I think.
I'll just say, like, the current design doesn't really consider that kind of privacy. So the transaction format that I was mentioning earlier is purely a functional standpoint. So it's like what they call a commit revealed scheme. So a special address is generated, then a user sends Bitcoin to that address, and then that address can only be spent by the original sender after the transaction, after the peg-in expires, if you will. So there's like a block limit. The miners get, or the stackers get 2,100 blocks to actually fulfill your peg-in. If they don't do that, then you can reclaim your Bitcoin. So there's no, no issue to you. But it's purely functional, so that they can spend the Bitcoin, send it to the peg wallet, and then mint your SBTC. And then for peg out, there's a similar process that also uses a commit revealed. So it's purely about that, and the structure contains identifying information to actually relate that back to the Stacks account. So you can see, like, if you send a Bitcoin transaction, that the stackers know, or the protocol knows which Stacks address to actually credit with the SBTC. And then when you're pegging out, which also starts on Bitcoin, there's also a proof inside that structure that shows, like, hey, this is coming from this stacker address, or sorry, this Stacks address, and I have the amount of SBTC that I want to peg out. So that's the information that's in there. That is, of course, not to say that there will be no possibility to support privacy, like Jesse just mentioned. And I was also just thinking, like, well, you have CoinJoin today on Bitcoin, which provides a level of anonymity. And I think you could do a CoinJoin and from there peg into SBTC if you care about that. I don't see a reason why that wouldn't work. So that's something that came to my mind. But if you're very interested in that, I would say get involved in the discussion. SBTC work groups are all open. Everyone's working in the open. So make that proposal and make SBTC better.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you for that comment, Marvin. That really sparked a couple different thoughts. I'm going to follow, but I'll share at a later time.
Awesome.
Okay, beautiful, guys. It's been a good call. Just to close out, because I only got 3 minutes. maybe it's a question to Gina or and Marvin. How would you advise people to get more involved in a SIP development or process?
I think just sharing, suggestions and thoughts, either on GitHub or the forum, and being part of it. I do feel like there's a lot of folks that put a lot of time and effort into the process. All of the SIP editors, all of the cabs, and I thank them, and I think that there's a lot of room for us to keep growing this process and building this muscle of governance.
Yeah, it depends on really what you want to do. So if you feel like, hey, you have a cool idea and you want to turn that into a SIP and gather community feedback and whatnot, you can start that really in steps. You don't have to open a PR and drop this massive SIP document that's completely polished and finished. If that's too big of a step for you, you can just start with a GitHub issue on the SIPs repo and say like, hey, I have this idea and this is kind of my solution. What do you guys think? And get the conversation started. If that's still step too much, you can also start that discussion in Discord or on the forum. So there's many different ways. And yeah, if you want to get involved in the advisory boards, you can hit them up. And I think all their notes are also public. So it's just if you want to get involved, there's many different avenues. Lots of reading material available.
Yeah, I agree. And the SIP editors, just going off what you said, actually the SIP editors, one of their responsibility or role is actually, like you said, like if it's too much for you, like you can actually come to the SIP editors and we'll help you with that. And we meet once every 2 weeks, so bi-weekly. We meet on Thursday, and if anybody got any ideas and they don't know how to fill out the form, and we're here to help. The SIP editors here to help you shape that up.
Yeah, I think a great example is what we just talked about with multisig. So let's say that this fix that I was referencing actually didn't make it in 2.1. Nothing preventing you from writing a SIP on it that suggests adding that feature, re-adding that feature. And then if you get enough community supports and the cabs vote off on it, right? That would be the process to get a new feature added to the Stacks chain. That's not to say that it's going to be a quick process, because it's probably a consensus breaking, but there's a pathway to get something like that done, and it just requires you to put in the work to put that together, and then rally the community behind the idea and show why it's useful. So yeah, it's a great example of how we could get that done.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much. So just to close it out, next Friday, we actually have a very important call as well, SIP for Bitcoin MEV issues. So please join next Friday's SIP call, and you can hear all about it and you can ask your questions. Yeah, that's it. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Appreciate your time, Marvin, Gina, and everyone here. Good to have Vlad and different people joining as well. Right. Have a nice weekend.
Thanks, guys. Thanks so much. See ya.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.